We've discussed schedules in the past, but this particular project has a little bit more complex schedule, so I want to go into it in a little more detail. We'll start with the door schedule, which can be found on drawing A140. The very first thing that you're going to notice on a door schedule is the number that corresponds to the door that's on the plan. That's where you match up the door so that you know what you're dealing with. And then you just follow it across. The next thing is that there's a whole section in the door schedule just for the door. And there's a different section just for the frame. Now we've gone over the height and the width and everything for the door, but there's this extra element that they've added. It's called EL. So what's an EL column? Well, it turns out here that it's an elevation, and it has a letter that corresponds to an elevation of the door. So you can actually see what it looks like. And that elevation happens to be on the same page. There's another column, MATL, which stands for material, to indicate what type of material it is. They use abbreviations for the material and they don't define them anywhere, but you can probably figure it out. That ALUM is going to be aluminum, WD will be wood, HM, hollow metal. Looking at the frame, it's divided up into three parts: the head, the jamb, and the sill. What are those? The head, top of the door. The jamb, side of the door. The sill, bottom of the door. And what they do for each is point you to a detail of the head, the jamb, and the sill. They do this by a letter and a number. H for head, J for jamb, S for sill, and then a number, 1, 2, 3, and so on. You use that, and then you can look up at the drawing for the head, the jamb, or the sill to understand the detail of how that goes together. And like the door itself, the frame also has elevations and materials. Looking at those door elevations, we see the same dashed lines that we saw on some interior elevations for cabinets. And those dashed lines converge to a point. Always remember that that point indicates where the hinges go. Now let's look at some of these details like we did with the walls, trying to understand the materials that make it up. When you're dealing with an interior door, it's actually pretty simple. You have your stud, your frame, and your drywall. When you're dealing with an exterior door, it gets a little bit more complicated because we have all the materials that we had in the wall itself. But then we have to add a few more materials to deal with the door detail, such as a lintel, flashing, and so on. The windows are slightly different. It doesn't have the table like the doors does, but it does have the elevations, and it does have the details for the heads, the jambs, and the sills. Just like doors, heads on top, jambs on the side, sills on the bottom.